Addressing economic issues. Doing for self. Community employment services. Job training and readiness. Job placement and transportation. Financial literacy classes teaching savings and investing. Community real estate development companies. Buy up and control properties in the community, offer investment property training, create knowledgeable informed landlords that would care for the community. Teach the value and advantages of home ownership and help increase the number of homeowners, create homeowner associations. Create real estate co-ops, crowdfunding platforms, and investment clubs, negotiate with banks for mortgages and financing. Community Business Development Corporations, BDCs. Start new businesses and offer franchise opportunities and investments starting with the 4 major community businesses of beauty supply, dollar stores, restaurants, and grocery stores. Then we would move on to financial institutions for long-term growth and development. Create business leagues, business co-ops, crowdfunding platforms and community banks for funding as well as negotiate with national banks and the federal government for loans. Teach business management, bookkeeping, and strategic marketing. Taking control of the economics of our communities is a must. We cannot depend on others to provide for our needs. African American business leaders would take the lead in this effort. Businesses would organize as a group then share their professional knowledge, experience, and expertise by creating and multiplying all types of businesses throughout the community, according to the needs of the people for wealth building and job creation. We would teach the community financial literacy, money management, and investment strategies. Our goal would be to become the biggest owners of properties and businesses in the community and the largest employer of African American people in the country. Addressing political issues. Doing for self. Bring community awareness. Meet and discuss issues. Establish a political agenda so the community would know what we are fighting for and politicians would understand what is expected of them. Get involved in every level of government, city, county, state, House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate in order to gain their support. Strengthen political base. Hold voter registration drives to increase and maintain numbers. Form a national and local political action committee with community representatives that would reach out to politicians to enforce our political agenda. Raise funds to contribute to politicians' campaigns for their support. Research and select candidates. Meet with candidates and make it clear what our agenda is and what their role would be in helping us achieve it. Select candidates that agrees to support our agenda, donate to their campaigns and turn out the vote. Hold candidates accountable to our agenda and offer to fund their re-election campaigns. It is very unlikely that politicians would take the lead in the development of the community, but instead the people of the community, its organizations, business, and property owners would take the lead. The role of the politicians would be to support the community's efforts in reaching their goals, and in return for their support we would vote and fund their campaigns. But before this can happen, every community must have a community development organization or well-organized social groups in order to reap the full benefits of political power. Any political assistance would then be given to community development organizations and social groups members and businesses, such as grants, community revitalization funds, city and state business contracts. A greater focus and participation in local politics that directly affect our communities is also needed so that we may have a voice in city, county, and state governments. We must be willing to work with and maintain strong ties and relationships with judges, district attorneys, police chiefs, and politicians that make up our local judicial and political systems. During yearly meetings, groups would contribute to a political fund, and those funds along with a new agenda for the year would be presented to both political parties so that they may fulfill the needs of the people. Financing campaigns is a sure way to get true political power. Politicians would be more inclined to listen to our concerns and support our efforts to develop the community, if we are willing to give them our vote and the financial backing and support that they need. The social agenda. What we want from society. To live a healthy life. Access to good food and water. To maintain our physical health. Access to health care. To enjoy the quality of life. Strong family structures. Education and employment. Home and business ownership. To have freedom and protection. Human rights and equal justice. Safe, prosperous communities. To live peacefully with ourselves and others. The African American Agenda, or the Black Agenda, is Black people coming together in unity in order to take control of the social, education, economics and politics of our communities so that we and our families may live in safety and prosperity. And the 4 parts of this agenda must be analyzed, developed and addressed for the upliftment of our people. Our social agenda is the beginning. We must establish social norms and create a positive culture for our people to follow, norms that would give us something to look forward to and give us a set of standards to strive for in our everyday lives. The education agenda. What we want from the education system. Representation. A voice in governors and mayors' offices and a seat on the Board of Education, that we may have a greater say and control of our children's education. A voice inside of the schools to let students know what is expected of them and that the children may know that they have the support of the entire community behind them. Political support for our education agenda. Effective curriculum and teachers. Teach values and ethics, African American history and culture on a regular basis, self-awareness, life skills, financial literacy, trades and career-focused classes. Hire and train teachers to be better teachers to African American children and increase the number of male teachers in schools. Provide entrepreneurship and business management classes. Access to higher education. Teach college readiness and preparedness. Increase and monitor enrollment numbers at major universities. All universities' African American Studies classes would need to include a course in community and economic development. Open more local trade schools and community colleges. African American communities must take greater control over the education system in their cities and not totally depend on others to make all the decisions for us. When it comes to education, we must make the schools work like we want them to for the advantage of our children, and that begins with having an education agenda. We must know exactly what we want the education system to do for us, and we must fight to make this happen. What is needed is vision-minded community leaders in decision-making positions on local boards of education, at universities, and in governors' and mayors' offices. Leaders who know what the community need and want in order to educate our children according to our education agenda. Teaching African American culture is needed in all public schools, that kids may learn who they are, so that they may learn to love themselves and want to better themselves through education. Community economic development courses are needed at universities to train and prepare future leaders to return to their communities to help develop them. The economic agenda. Joint economics. From corporations. Employment opportunities. Subcontracts and franchise opportunities. To become stockholders, capital providers, and partners of businesses. From city, state, and federal governments. Employment opportunities. Business contracts. Community improvement funds, loans, and grants. From national banks. Employment opportunities. Home loans. Business loans. Joint economics. Joint economics is our willingness to work and negotiate with other groups within the framework of the American economic system. A system that we are all a part of, and we will do it for the sole benefit of our communities, our families, and ourselves. We must create strong ties and bonds for economic prosperity. As we strive to work within this economic system, it then would work for us and with us to build a stronger nation. Investing in corporations as capital providers and stockholders would give us a seat in the boardrooms of these companies. As investors and owners, we would have a say in the distribution of subcontracts, a greater influence over income disparities and the hiring practices of these companies. We would be able to determine how and where businesses expand and relocate. We would then use that influence in the growth and development of our communities. We would also create holding companies to buy businesses. Holding companies would act anonymous and be able to move in silence when needed to avoid any and all pushback from naysayers or doubters. As a group striving for economic development, we must be willing to put aside any personal resentments or bitterness that we may have over what has happened in the past, so that we may be able to see clearly in order to negotiate or buy our way into this economic system for the benefit and upliftment of our communities. We do not deny what has happened in the past and the problems that continue to this day, but we cannot afford to bring this baggage to the table as we negotiate for economic development from the government, corporations, and banks. We must be willing to put those things to the side as we push for economic development for our communities. The political agenda. What we want from the political system. In the area of education, allow greater community input, give support for the education agenda and the suggestions it lays out for having an effective curriculum and career-focused classes for schools to properly educate our children. Equal school funding, fair funding across the board for all public schools. Support for the creation of new institutions, owned by the community such as private schools, community colleges and trade schools. In the area of economics, loans and grants, encourage financial backing from major banks for property and business loans. Give greater access to government grants, community revitalization funds, FHA, SBA, and MBA loan programs that would increase home and business ownership. Business contracts, fair access to business contracts from both local and federal governments and corporations. Employment, an increase in employment opportunities from the government and corporations. In the area of social development, have an open door policy. Politicians need to meet and listen to the community and its leaders and be willing to work with community political representatives. Address concerns in a timely manner. Politicians need to be more attentive and ready to act on behalf of the community, especially when it comes to overturning laws that negatively affect our communities. Give support for social organizations, increase grant funding and encourage corporate donations to organizations that are running effective programs for change in the community. It is the responsibility of the community to create a political agenda for our education and economic development. That agenda would then be presented to politicians for their support. Having a well-established political agenda allows us to stay focused on what we want from the political system no matter who is in office. Whether they are black or white, Democrat or Republican, we must make the political system work for us by electing vision-minded politicians into office that supports our agenda. What is needed is political support for an increase in FHA, SBA, MBA loans given for home and business ownership, government contracts that would help grow businesses and create more jobs, grant funding for social programs to address the issues of education, safety, crime, and drugs. If we become major donors to both political parties, supporting them not only with our vote but financially as well, we would achieve our goal of getting the backing of the federal government for the development and upliftment of our communities.